Hi guys, I think we are happening, and it is in fact 1 minute past 1 o'clock Pacific time, so we're a bus, as we say in the business. Welcome to another live stream, and this one is the 30-year Cowpoke, and it is a celebration of this beauty. 30 years I have been playing this guitar. It was made for me by master Canadian luthier Linda Manzer. And I will be joined today on this live stream by Linda Manzer and our host, who is going to referee and make sure that we keep on track for the next 90 minutes. Our host will be Tom Allen, and here he is.
No promises about keeping anybody in line there, Mr.
Well, I'm sure glad that you can do this. And there's Linda, looking fantastic with a nice set of earbuds.
Hi, Linda.
Hey, hi, everyone.
I'm just going to say the disclaimer is that this is a digital live stream, and we've had some success in the past with it and also some epic fails. So hopefully we can get the information that we want to get across, and also we can make things sound good. But anyway, Tom, take it away.
All right. Well, so as Stephen said, we have 90 minutes to enjoy Stephen's great songs and great guitar playing, and find out from Linda how she makes these amazing instruments, and hear the story of both the one that Stephen's holding and the brand new Cowpoke, which he received delivery in fall of 2019. And the story about how that came about, including the time that Air Canada thought it would be better if Stephen's guitar was somewhere very far away from him. Well, stories along the way about Linda's career as a luthier, which it's true, Stephen has said she is world-renowned, has made guitars for Bruce Cockburn, Gordon Lightfoot, Pat Metheny, Carlos Santana, among many, many others.
Connie Calder.
Yes.
I always like putting Connie in there because she's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mine too.
I also need to tell you, where is it now? Yes, that this is a live stream, an adaptation of the original stage event, which was in the fall, and we hope to, once things settle down, do this a lot more live.
Yeah.
But this one is part of the National Arts Centre Centre National des Arts Canada Perform Series in partnership with Facebook Canada, with Slate Music, with RBC, and Sirius XM Canada. And let me say a huge thank you to those people, because they have created a platform where there really just wasn't one.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're delighted to be able to share this with you.
Yes, indeed.
So how about Stephen, just to put things in perspective, should we have a song?
Sure. Let me turn my reverb on a little bit, because everything's better with reverb. Hopefully that's not too much. Of course, I'm out of tune now. I was in tune. So this tune is this is one of the tunes off of a recording that I put out just before everything went pear-shaped. The album is called The Unconquerable Past, and this tune is Someone Else's Shoes. Outside the world is crying, breaks my heart in two. 'Cause no one is an island, better walk in someone else's shoes. 'Cause we don't really see each other, we don't even trust the truth. Is the old divide and conquer, eye for an eye and tooth for tooth. Heaven help the privileged ones who never felt the blues. You won't find the road to love till you walk in someone else's shoes. Walk in someone else's shoes. privileged ones who never felt the blues. Oh, 'cause you won't find the road to love till you walk in someone else's shoes. Walk in someone else's shoes. Walk in someone else's shoes. Walk in someone else's shoes.
All right. Yeah,
Nice.
let's fill in the applause. Really.
It's like to the Muppets, those two guys up in the balcony. I thought it was out of tune.
So, Linda, when you're hearing your instrument, the instrument of Stephen's instrument, the one you made from this distance and across this line, do you still hear the characteristics that you first recognized when you made that instrument 30 years ago?
Oh, well, I mean, any instrument that has been around for as long as that one changes quite a bit because it grows and gets a lot of mustard and whatever Stephen had for lunch. He's really kind of beat the hell out of it, which is something that's fantastic about it because you can see every belt buckle scrape as he's twirling it around there. And
and what about the lacquer? Does the lack of lacquer in places where it's worn off, does that change the sound?
I mean, there's so many things involved. It might change it like a hair, but you wouldn't actually. I love this. Sort of like Vanna White in the background there. It changes. An instrument, even from the first moment you put the strings on, within an hour, it actually starts to change and sound different because it's like a dancer whose limbs are getting loose and, starting to move around and get a sense of it limbering up and
keep holding it here. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going, Linda. Okay. It's perfect.
Okay, great. Thanks. The guitar's perfect.
In fact, let's talk about that first hour, because that is part of the story. Stephen, when you first went to Linda's studio almost 31 years ago with Willie P. Bennett, just tell us, you guys, between the two of you, tell us what happened.
Well, I had played, I wish I still had it, but I had a Guild, a D35, which is not unlike the shape of this guitar, a bit more dreadnoughty, so a bit flatter around here, not quite so roundy on these curves. Mm-hmm. But, and especially here, the dreadnought shape is slightly flatter. And I had one of those, which I'd bought in Minneapolis, and I loved it so much. And it was sort of the first grown-up guitar that I owned. I'd had a number of different weird instruments before that, but the neck had a very strange thing, and the grain on the neck you can't see on this guitar, but the grain on the neck should be straight, and the grain on the old Guild that I had a bit of a warp here, and so that meant that it had a flaw right here. And as anybody who's watched me play knows, I like wiggling the necks. I like doing this because you get this. You get this sort of natural whammy, which fingers are like, dude, don't do that.
It's your warranty.
What I love about Manzers is they're made so that they're very, very strong guitars. They're not like milk toast guitars. And my Guild is also a very strongly built guitar, but it had this flaw. And what happened is gradually the neck started to lift. And anyway, I had to get a new guitar. At that point, I was very good friends and was very much under the mentorship of the great Willie P. Bennett. And so I was visiting him in Toronto, as I did. I was still living in Vancouver, and I said, I need a new guitar. So we went guitar shopping, and we went all over Hell's Half Acre looking at different guitars, beautiful guitars, handmade guitars, factory-built guitars, you name it. We looked at them all. We went to all the Steves and the Long and McQuaids and the 12th fret. I think the 12th fret was actually, I don't even know if that was in business then, but there was a couple of small guitar stores. And anyway, he said at one point, there's this woman named Linda Manzer, and you might be interested in her stuff. We should visit. So we called Linda, and Linda said, well, my waiting list was, I don't know how long your waiting list was at
I
the
probably
time,
lied. It's probably like, 2
but
people.
it just seemed like, wow, like 6 months. No, I need one now. And he said, well, there may be a used one up at a pawn shop up the road. This is my memory. And then you kind of went, well, actually, I have one that you could look at. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I mean, why didn't you say right away, I have one? Anyway, so we went over to Linda's shop, which is where you are right now, in the very room in Cabbagetown. And I just remember coming in with Willie. And, Willie was he could be a curmudgeon. He could be a crusty bugger at the best of times. He was so kind to me. He dragged me all over town. He loved looking at guitars with the idea of buying a new guitar. But Linda brought this guitar out.
Okay, so let me interrupt now. So Linda, let's pick up your story until this point. Why did you hesitate? What was that guitar before Stephen came in the door?
Well, what I didn't tell Stephen until a few years ago
I love this.
was a year before Stephen showed up. A guy came to buy a guitar from me, and it was a rainy day, and this was the guitar I just finished, and I could tell he had a wad of money in his pocket, and I was poor, and I was like, yeah, please buy it. But it was rainy, and it was all humid, and he tried that guitar, and I could just see his face fall, and he just didn't connect with it, and I just watched him and my next month's rent walk out the door, and I was so depressed because I was just sort of I guess I was starting my career, but every guitar sale mattered a huge amount to me.
Right.
And so I put it under my bed until a year went by and Stephen called. And that's why I was hesitant, because I thought, I think this guitar is not very good. And he's a really, he's somebody I want to try my best work. But what that thing I just alluded to is that guitars grow. And just the fact it sat under my bed and aged.
Right.
And maybe the floor, because my shop was below my bedroom at that time. The floorboards were, vibrating from all the machines or something, and the guitar was vibrating. I don't know.
Would it have been strung up all that time?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So it was under tension too. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Other artists also say you should leave. Like a novelist will tell you, I finished my book, I'm going to leave it in the bottom drawer for a year and then come back and look at it. There's a truth there across disciplines where time actually does something, even if you're not looking at it.
It's the same with sourdough. Sorry, a little cultural reference there. I can relate to.
It's also the thing that kind of I studied with Jimmy DeQuisto. He's one of my two teachers, him and Jean-Claude Larrivée. And he said this thing that really had a huge impact on my career and the way I viewed having guitars and letting them go and who they end up with, is that a guitar always ends up in the hands of the person it's meant to be in. And in this case, it was you, Stephen. I mean, as soon as you walked in, I could see, that you completely connected with this guitar. And I was so excited, as you remember, probably I was keeping a poker face.
Oh, yes, you were. Yes, okay. You were poker faced. And I mean, I honestly, I have it's such an old thing. I'm a story that is 31 years ago, but I just remember playing it and thinking, how can I own this instrument? Because what I remember you saying was, if you like it, I can build a guitar for you. If you like, so it was, because I didn't think that this guitar was up for sale. I had a sense that I play this, I go, yeah, and then we talk. And so I was kind of like, I don't want another guitar. I want this guitar. So how can I get this guitar? And I remember playing it for hours.
A long time.
And you kept kind of sticking your head in and going, "Are you okay?"
And did it change over that time, Stephen? Like, did it settle in, as we were saying, in the course of
I wasn't. Hours? I was just aware. Like, the whole thing was so new, and also, here's a little fact: is when you go into a guitar store and you're playing, you're aware of the fact that you're trying to get a sense of this thing, but you're also not in a private place where you can really let go of the I'm performing thing and just play. It's like when you're trying to write, you don't want people listening. And so I was just sort of conscious that I was in your house, your shop, and it was all a little overwhelming. And Willie was bored. I think he actually, because he was like, "Oh God, he's going to be here for hours." We're starting to drill down. So I think Willie took off. I played for a while. Maybe he came back, and then it was like, okay, I've got to go think of this, which is really, I've just got to gather my wits. So I think we left, and then I think I lasted an hour before I called Linda.
Well, as I remember you saying, Linda, you watched them go right out the back window.
Yeah. I was watching out the windows just over here, and I could see the two of them walking down the alleyway talking, and I was desperately trying to hear what they were saying. I was going from window to window to window, watching them. Off they went. And then, oh, they're gone. Oh well, now what? How am I going to make my rent, sort of thing. And then the call came, and was I cool as a cucumber, or could you hear me jumping up and down?
Well, I seem to recall that you answered on the second ring, but it was definitely like we both quickly got to the heart of the thing, which is I want it. Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. And then it was, how can I afford it? Because, it's a major investment, especially 31 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, I think I was still driving. In fact, I know I was driving my Datsun 510 wagon with the fleece that I had splurged on at IKEA to make the seat more comfortable. So, it was definitely poor as bones time. And, Linda and I figured out a way that I could basically get it. But then I had to order a case. So Linda had to do all these drawings, and this is a sidebar, but I got a case made by the very, very early, one of the first Carlton cases made in Canada by Al Williams and his crew out in Calgary, who were just starting to make Carlton cases. And
wonderful Al. Yeah.
Wonderful Al. He built me a case for this guitar, which he shipped to Linda, and then Linda put the guitar in the case and she shipped it to me, and it arrived. So this took like, I don't know, maybe a couple of months.
Probably.
And then I got it. And all the while I'm nursing this beautiful old guild along with this weird neck. I had to have capo on all the time because it was unplayable. It's like the Charles Atlas course, to make your biceps bigger. Yeah. And then this guitar arrived. And that's when I really noticed that transition. So I remember bringing it home to the place that I used to live in, East Van, and playing it for, I don't know, I probably played it for about 4 or 5 hours that first day. And it definitely changed. The sound of it changed over that time. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Wow. Such a great image. And so, Linda, at this point, 1989, you were an established guitar maker for a long time. Tell us about Carlos Santana and how he possibly inadvertently gave you a career.
Yeah. Well, when I was an apprentice with Larrivee, on my way out to Victoria, where you are right now, Stephen, where I stopped. I went out west with a friend of mine, and we ended up getting to San Francisco, and I crashed at Santana's house because she was visiting his drummer, Graham Lear, and I met Santana at the time. But then what happened was I got up to Victoria, and a few months later I got a letter in the mail from Graham Lear and his wife Sandy Lear asking if I would build a guitar for Santana as a Christmas present, as a surprise for him. So what I did is I made the guitar, and that was in 1976, I believe. Mm-hmm. And a few months after he got it, he was interviewed in Guitar Player magazine, and he mentioned me, which he just said, a friend of mine, Linda Manzer, made me a guitar that has really good tone. But what I think you're alluding to is that before I...
Yeah.
Well, a little bit, I know. Yeah, I know. Wow, I know. That sort of blew my...
And that really was it, right? That one line made an enormous difference to your career.
Well, it certainly gave me credibility, yeah. And at the time, I was actually still an apprentice with Larrivee, which was a little bit of an upstarty thing for me to have accomplished before I left his wing. Sorry, Jean-Claude, if you're watching. But before I sent the guitar, one of the things that breaks a guitar in is if it vibrates, as I was mentioning. And so the house I was living in, it was just before Christmas. And the people I was living with were playing, I wanted to leave it out in the stand, so it was beside the speakers, but it was playing John Denver. They were playing John Denver's Christmas album. So So it kind of came pre-programmed with John Denver's Christmas album. So if Carlos Santana ever sounds like John Denver,
Yeah, right.
I'd like to take credit for that.
This guitar, it's weird. I just keep wanting to fill up my senses.
All right,
So
cool.
that's that story, yeah.
And so that was what did we say? So it's 13 years before you met Stephen. How many other guitars had you made by the time Stephen and Willie came to your studio?
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I you're asking me to kind of be good with numbers. When I started, I made about 20 guitars a year. Now I make about 6.
Mm-hmm.
So if you kind of had a graph,
right?
Wow.
my production decline. Maybe I was like, kind of making them faster at the beginning, or I was younger. I don't know. Add those two factors together, and I'm slower and perhaps more careful now.
Right.
So I'd probably made maybe about maybe 100 guitars, maybe.
Wow.
Something like that. Maybe 150. I'm up to about. I don't really keep track, but I think I'm up to about 600 or 700 now.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that a lot?
That is wild. That's wild.
And
Do you
I
ever
don't
have
even-
fantasies of having them all like on stands? No.
Oh my God, no. That every person would be saying, "Can you fix the action side?" I got
There's a
an email
little
this
thing
morning.
right here.
I get an email. I got an email this morning from Poland, and there's a problem with the guitar. We're trying to figure out how I'm going to fix it. But
Wow.
and if you're watching, hi, Marcin.
Yeah, it's one of the things that is scary when you get a new guitar like this is you don't want to just take it to, the local fella down the road to get things done, because people do weird stuff and repair people can like make major decisions without your permission on stuff, as has happened with this instrument.
Well, because
over the years,
if something goes wrong at 3 o'clock on the night of on the day of a show, you just got to get it fixed, right?
Yeah, you got to get stuff fixed. But even so, it's like you want to take it back to, the motherland to get it repaired or looked at or consulted with. Right. And,
But luckily, there are better repair people out there than there was 30 years ago.
Yeah,
luckily.
Definitely.
The boat has risen in the sea. What's that? The term I'm trying to.
I don't know. That's a good one.
Thank you.
The tide has brought all boats up.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why you're the songwriter and I'm the wood sander.
Can we hear something else, Stephen?
Well, I'm wondering, sure, let's play something else, but maybe it would be good to unveil the new one.
Well, sure, we haven't talked about that. Okay, well, so as I understand it, and maybe this is too simplistic an explanation.
Is this the time to do it? It's hiding right here.
Yeah. Tell me if I've there it is. So as I understand the story, Air Canada lost your guitar for long enough that you started thinking you might need another one, right?
Yeah, it was several years ago now. I was on my way back. Look at how shiny and no spit marks.
It's shocking.
Look at that.
You can see the reflection. There we are.
I see myself.
Yeah,
it's remarkable how different it is. There's no belt buckle marks. And this one you can't see so well. I'm going to try. No, that makes it worse. Oh, you sort of maybe this way. There's a slight what you called a honey burst. So right around here, it's more blonde in the middle, and it darkens as you go to the outside of the guitar. The finish is slightly darker around the outside, which just gives it this lovely patina. It's very hard to see in this kind of because it's very subtle. You can sort of see it there.
Yeah,
anyway,
I can see it.
Air Canada lost my beautiful old 30-year-old Manzer, and it was gone for 72 hours. And I remember I was still living in Halifax. I'd just flown home from the first time I played the Shrewsbury Folk Festival. And I went through, I don't know, it's one of the huge terminals at Heathrow, and that was where the problem is. It's a long story, but it went basically from me sitting at home with Facebook going, God damn it, where's my guitar? Yeah. And really, really annoyed. And I wrote a nasty Facebook post. And I'm lucky enough to have some pretty diehard fans who know my guitars and care about my guitars. And so they started reposting. And good Lord, Air Canada, it was my first real lesson in the power of social media. And you know, if you're having a tough time with a company, just start squawking about it loudly and the squeaky wheel. So it went from me on my own in my office on Facebook to it ended up being on national 6 o'clock news, which was definitely a quiet day for news in Canada. But it was, you know, a musician fights Twitter war, and it went on. And I started getting phone calls from Air Canada going, please stop. We're doing our best, you know, and then it was returned to me, but it took about 72 hours or longer, which I know for some people they're going, oh, good Lord, man, my stuff was missing for 3 weeks, but they didn't know where it was. And that really freaked me out. And I gathered that Linda saw my bleating and started thinking, okay, time to start figuring out another guitar for this fella. And the transition between the old one and the new one, there's a third guitar that's in between these two. And I don't know if now's the time to tell the story, or maybe now's the time to play the little video I made that showcases the two instruments. So what I did yesterday is I recorded the same little hymn that I grew up with. It's a hymn called Be Thou My Vision. It's just a lovely piece of music that I played. And I recorded two versions, one on this new guitar and one on the old guitar. And then I cut them together as best I could in Filmora. So it's a little glitchy. It's not perfect, but what you will see is this guitar, you can see, has my signature on it. And so when you see this, you'll know that you're hearing the new guitar. And when you see the old beat up warhorse with the mustard stains on it, you'll know that you're hearing the old one. And at some point in the little video, there's some text that tells you old, new, but basically you'll hear them cut together so you can really A/B. And I'm using, what you're hearing them through is this beautiful AKG 414 microphone straight into a board with a minimal EQ and a little bit of reverb added. It's very, very, very minimal. There's nothing. Mostly you're just hearing the guitars going straight into that microphone. Let her roll there, JJ. Here it comes. One, two, three, and... Okay, so it's interesting how, I don't know, Linda, if you heard, like, it's not massive differences at all.
Well, I
yeah.
actually couldn't hear anything because I had a blank screen. So,
Really?
yeah, unfortunately.
Let me just make sure, if somebody who's listening out there, did everybody see and hear that okay? You can just let me know in the public chat forum. Dale Whitehead saying something there. Hi, Dale. Mike Lord. Oh, okay. So Mike Lord heard it because he said, "I love Be Thou My Vision." So I'm kind of hoping that people got it, but I'm sorry you didn't hear it.
I actually texted to a friend of mine who's watching, and hi Marnie, and she told me she could see it.
Okay.
So,
well, what I've noticed from listening to it, and I've heard that video three or four times now. I've watched it and heard it in headphones too, and these are good headphones, and it's a great mic. The difference between the two guitars is subtle. Okay, yes, we got it. Okay, everybody's saying they got it in. Okay, great. The comparison was fascinating. Yes, we saw and heard just fine. Okay, great. So the new guitar is more mid-rangey. That's what I'm hearing. What would be interesting is, I mean, I don't want to play the same tune twice, but you'd hear if I was trying to let you hear immediately, because as soon as you start playing the new guitar, you forget what the old one sounds like. To me, the old guitar sounds, it's brighter on the top end and it's got more bottom end and it's wider screen, whereas this one is more mid-range, very focused. It's more articulate in that it feels easier to play. It has, to me, what I think of as almost a classical sound. I can't really put it into words, but I'm what I'm really aware of. And of course, when you gave me this guitar when was that? November? December?
I think it was November. Yeah, November.
Yeah, okay.
October.
When
November.
you gave it to me in October, November, it had. I mean, you just strung it up that day.
Yeah.
And I played it, and it was amazing sound to me, but it was startling because it sounded so good. I thought, well, that's it. The old one's never going on the road again. And then I brought the two of them out for a number of dates in November, December, and I played shows with them right up until I went to Europe, and I realized that I didn't trust it. I didn't trust it 100% because I ran into some instances where it fed back in ways that I wasn't prepared for. So when I went to Europe on the last tour, I brought the old one, and it was almost like the old one was going, hey, yeah, I still sound absolutely amazing. And that
don't forget me.
Yeah, exactly. The newcomer is just going to sit at home for a little while and earn its crust. So I came home from being away for about 2 months and picked the new one up again, and was again remarkable how it sounded. And it's breaking in. It is definitely breaking in.
Yeah.
It's developing. I don't think it's funny because there's subtle differences about it. One of the things that we can talk about is, if you notice the depth of the body here and the depth of the body here, the bottom bout is wider. So do you want to explain that?
That's
Linda?
called the wedge. So it's skinnier under your arm and it's wider on your knee. So
it's wider down here.
Yeah. So
this part is wider than this part.
Yeah. And I first did this on the Picasso guitar, which I made for Pat Metheny, which is actually in above my head there, that guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Hard to do this.
Yeah, I know,
like
it's really
rubbing
hard.
your head and patting your belly or something. And the idea was I wanted to lean the top back so he could look over, because that guitar has 42 strings on it. And I wanted him to be able to see what he was doing. So it ended up being a really ergonomic thing, though, to do. So I started doing it on all my guitars from that moment forward. Well, on most of my guitars, because people didn't notice I was doing it. I could get away with it because it was incredibly radical thing to do at the time, because it was, nobody did anything, made changes like that on guitars. They do now, but at the time they certainly didn't.
Yeah.
It's called the wedge. And I designed that actually with Tony Duggan-Smith. We came up with the idea together, and I implemented it into the Picasso, and then I've done it with every guitar ever since.
Because it's so there are a number of subtle differences between the two guitars, even though ostensibly these are the same model guitar. Yeah. They're ostensibly exactly the same guitar.
Don't do that.
I'll go back a little bit, but they're not. So you can see how the depth is different.
Yeah. One's shiny.
Well, sorry, I'm not. That's accurate. You can see how the depth is really different between them.
You're voiding your warranty.
It's okay. See that? How different that is?
Yeah, you can see how skinny it is.
Really different. The neck blocks are different.
I can't watch you do this.
Okay, here we go. See how the neck blocks are different? This one is rounded.
Yeah.
This one's pointy.
Yeah.
Really different.
I know this.
I know, but I was kind of, when I got it, it was like, wait a second. I thought it was going to be the same guitar, and it is a very, very similar guitar. The shape is similar, but it's actually really different. And so they're never going to.
Body is the same.
They're never going to sound the same. And as Joe Glazer, who's this great, as you know, Joe's a friend of both of ours. He is probably the preeminent repair person in the world. He's in Nashville, and so
there's some good ones, and they're watching possibly. So,
well, okay. So Joe's one of the preeminent repair people in the world, but you know, he works on all sorts of amazing instruments, and he said to me, well, you've been writing songs for 30 years. You're better at it. So Linda's been building for 30 years. She's better at it too. So the idea being that this is the same guitar, but 30 years later with all the experience that you've had, et cetera, et cetera. So when this breaks in, and if this, you know, in 30 years, if you could freeze the other guitar, you know, like cryogenically, and then compare them in 30 years, that would be interesting.
That would be how we do it, right?
So, Tom, you're back. Referee us. Can you hear us, Tom? I think Tom's having troubles.
Oh, we lost Tom.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I'm
do you want me to show you? You want me to show you how I make?
You know what I should do? Maybe what I should do is play a song whilst we see if we can get Tom sorted out. And why don't you, Linda? Why don't you go and set up one of your building demos?
I'm ready.
Are you ready to go? Then
I could do it.
Why don't you do a little building demo and tell us about things like, how do you make a guitar curve like this?
Oh, well, I'm
like,
actually.
How do you do that?
I'm going to do that. That's my next little demo.
Okay. What are you going to do then?
I'm attached with this, so I can't get too far away.
Okay.
But here, I'll just take this axe.
So this is a Luthier's tool right there, huh?
Right. Okay. So as you know, a guitar comes out of a tree.
Yes.
And you can see here there. I'm not sure how well you can see. I'm gonna.
It's tough. Oh, that's good.
Okay, so you can see the cracks, right?
Yeah.
So there's a natural crack here, and what happens is here. I've got a magic marker. So guitar top, there's rings on a guitar, right? That go like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you count from the center out, each one of these rings represents 1 year of life of a guitar, and then when you're cutting wood out of a tree for a guitar, it has to be cut in a very particular way so that the rings are at right angle. Like that. Okay. So you'll get two like that beside each other, and it's called what's called book matching. Okay. So those would be the rings of the guitar. And this piece of wood, which I took out of my fire pile, is actually about 53 years old. And I will be burning it tonight. So,
So can you see that? Of course, you're never going to be able to see those rings because this guitar is too shiny. But
if you started counting the rings on that guitar, there would be probably
the lines run this way. The grain runs this way.
That's right. But what happens is there's two pieces to your guitar top, right? So
this side.
I'm just going to show you like this. This is how it comes out of the tree, like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to put that down. You can see that? Okay.
Yeah.
So it comes out of the tree like this, and then it's like a book. It opens up like that. So you get, and see, look, it even comes out with the guitar shape drawn on
it. It's incredible.
It's incredible that Mother Nature is just awesome.
Yeah.
So I get this wood. This wood actually is German spruce I'm holding in my hands here. And so that comes out of the tree, and it opens up, and it's book matched. So you get two pieces together like this.
Is this German spruce?
Yes, that's German spruce. So then what happens once it's out of the tree? Oh, and I was going to show you the same with the back. So you would have a piece of wood. This is actually Brazilian rosewood. And you look on the back of your guitar, and it's book matched. Okay. So you can see that this is actually incredibly, the guitar geeks out there who know Brazilian will be drooling over this.
Oh my God. Yeah. Look at that.
And if you can all turn on your stinko meters, It smells amazing. I've heard, and I'm not sure if it's true, that the oil from Brazilian is what they use in Chanel No. 5. It's just, I'll just pause and smell that away. Okay, so anyway, once you've selected the wood, you have to, okay, I'll just show you a little bit more about selecting. So what you're looking for is something, this is just a piece of wood that's actually a scrap, but you start tapping it. But you want to check it for flaws. So if you're tapping it and there's, for instance, a crack in it, can you hear that? I don't.
Yeah,
can you
yeah,
hear that?
yeah, yeah.
It sounds fuzzy.
Yeah.
Because this
it doesn't
guitar
ring at
top,
all.
right, and it's got a crack in it.
Right.
Which I found and weakened, and so
it's
that
now kindling.
It's now kindling,
Yes.
which will go very nicely in my fireplace with these two things.
Yes.
And then,
or you can send it to Air Canada and they can make toothpicks out of it, which is what they do with them.
So is that like what happens to them?
Yeah, that's what happens.
So then the next thing you're doing when you're making a guitar is you're tuning the wood. So this is a piece of mahogany, and I've got 2 pieces of mahogany here that are, you're going to have to trust me that these are identical in sound. Okay, so what I do is I tap it. You can hear that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. And then this one, what I did is I took a piece out of it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so now same piece of wood, but now I've taken a little bit of wood off.
Oh wow.
That's the difference. So and that's how you tune wood, by removing a little bit of weight. It lowers the note you're going to get off the wood. There's other ways you judge wood as well. Okay, these are 2 pieces of wood. This is spruce. This is actually Sitka spruce. And these 2 are identical in dimension, but they're different weight. They sound the same.
Similar, like a micro semitone difference.
Okay, that demonstration, that's interesting because it's never done that. Okay, so I've got another one here. Sorry, everyone. Same dimensions. Luckily, I had a backup.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you could hear that's different, right?
Yeah.
Same dimension. So the principle is this is lighter, this is denser, and this one, I'm sorry, this one's lighter. The lower one is lighter. The denser one is a higher pitch.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of the principle. And then you get a situation, these are just 2 pieces of wood I happen to have. They're very, very identical in dimension and weight, but I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear this, but
huge difference.
Okay, now I don't know if you can hear this on the microphones here, but the difference, what I hear here, is this is a completely dead piece of wood.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
Like,
yeah, there's nothing. It's not ringing at all.
Yeah, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be from a visual point of view.
Huh. So is that a weird grain or maybe a flaw in the wood?
Yeah, that's a good question. It might be this. Well, there's something. It's called run out. This has run out in it. It's a beautiful looking piece of wood. Other than it sounds like crap. So we'll get rid of that one and we'll keep this one. So. And then the other thing that I'm looking for, what I'm looking for ultimately in a piece of wood is I want it to have lots of sustain and I want it to ring like a bell. So. Another thing, I just found these are really old pieces of guitars I had around, is you're looking for, you want the guitar to have some stiffness. So what I did was I got this one, which I don't know if you can see how floppy that is.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is basically, think of a trampoline. If you were to jump on a trampoline that was this flexible and you were to jump in the middle of it, you would just basically bottom out.
Right.
And then you wouldn't really go up very high.
Yeah.
Okay. This is exactly the same thickness. And this one is actually not floppy. I guess you're going to have to take my word for it.
I can see the difference.
You can see the difference? Actually, I did this. I was test doing this earlier to see if it would work, but I don't know if that's working. Anyway, this one will actually respond because the top is moving.
Uh-huh.
So it's pumping air. So you've got the bridge usually right here, and it's pumping the air. So if you've got, it's going to be more powerful. Is something like this floppy one is really not going to respond.
So
to the
this
string.
would be, to me, this would be, and every gig that I play with the Rodeo Kings, I have the pleasure of watching Gary Craig tune his drums, and it's fascinating to watch a drummer tune their drums. And
same principle.
Same principle. So the rosewood is the rim, the what are they called? The edges of the drums. The
rim,
sides of the drum. The rim is the top.
No.
So the rim is around here.
Let's say the
And then
body.
this is the skin, and then there's the sides of the drum. So you want the stiffer material on the sides, and you want the more flexible material on the top, right?
Yes, you want the top to move and the back and sides to
be,
for the most part. I mean, this is generally speaking. You want the top to move and the back and sides to reflect, like to be stiff, so that the air isn't moving. Although if you're playing your guitar, you can actually make your guitar sound different by muting the back of your guitar. So if you play a chord and you press it against your chest, or you have it away from your body, the guitar is going to sound a little different because you've muted the back of the guitar.
That's fun. Because I always play sitting up or standing up. It's always touching my body. But I remember when I was learning the idea of keeping the guitar away from you, the classical, so that it's as little point of contact with your body as possible was a big deal. But once I started playing and using a strap, it's always muted against me or touching me.
Yeah. So, and I just got one more magic trick here.
Please.
Okay. This is when you're examining wood, you're looking for flaws in the wood, partially because you don't want a crack, because that's a bad thing. You don't want sap pockets. So this particular, this is actually packing material. It came with its own sap pocket, but they hide in a guitar. So there's a thing you can do that's called candling. And here, let me I've got a lamp on here. I'll turn that off. Okay. Hopefully this works. Okay. So as you're going up, you can see.
Oh, yeah.
Right. See? Okay. But look.
Oh, yeah.
There's one that's hidden there that you couldn't see. See?
Yeah. It's right there.
So that's what, and also you can see the different
densities
of the wood. Right. So this is actually kind of a cool thing to do on a guitar, to see how thick it is too. The thicker the guitar. So in fact, I also make archtop guitars. So when I'm working on an archtop guitar, I'm candling a lot because I'm going by density. I want the archtop to be a little thicker in the middle and thinner on the edges.
And when you're doing all this work, are you using hand tools, or are you using any electric tools? Like how are you doing this? I'm particularly interested when you're making carved archtops. I seem to remember you scraping them by hand like a hide. Yeah,
I mean, I use bandsaws and a table saw and drill press and routers and stuff like that. But with my arch backs, I used to carve everything completely by hand with this tiny little plane about this size. It's awesome. Like my elbow would just be like, killing me by the end of it. So I now have my arch backs pretty much carved to final by I have somebody help me with that with a machine. But the tops I'm doing completely by hand. So I get a pile of shavings on my workbench like this. And as I'm carving, the guitar's changing the sound. Which is actually spectacular because it's very satisfying. It's very, you'd think it was boring because you are standing there for hours doing it and it's physically exhausting, but you start to get a sense of what the wood is capable of. And in my case, I like to think about it and digest it. And over a period of a few days, I kind of get a sense of what I'm doing because I'm making it up as I go along with archtops in particular.
Do you ever take it too far? Do you ever plane it farther than you wish you had?
I would never admit that, Tom.
I remember, Linda, I got to tell this story. I remember coming by your shop. This was over the years, stuff has happened to my guitar and I've had to bring it to Linda to get work done. And I remember coming by and you were showing me these new guitars that were like this. They were brand new and they were beautiful. And you were just, we were going, ooh. And I said,
I don't like where this is going.
Well, there was tiny little flecks of like, I thought it was deliberate. I thought it was beautiful. Little tiny flecks of green. And you went, what? And I said, well, just right there, there's little tiny flecks. And you got a knife out and you scored them. And it was like, oh. And I realized, so when you're spraying, if you've got a tiny little bit of contamination from an earlier spray job, and it had got on the top. But I mean, the sort of the filter that you have and the line between acceptable and unacceptable is so fine that, I mean, if I wish people could see this better than the camera can show you, but the tolerances are so fine. The way that the binding is, the way it feels is flawless. And that's, I guess, so if you get little tiny flecks of paint, no good. You got to start all over again. You sand the whole thing down. But it's remarkable how anybody who's building guitars, you can sort of get up into the wow, that looks nice pretty quickly, but beyond that into the world class, it's almost like you have to really know where you're looking. But to get that extra 20% better, it's in a huge amount of work. And I'm astounded by, even now that this has little flecks of spit and dust and things on it, I'm just amazed at just how it feels. Even compared to the old one, it feels so tight and light. It's much lighter than the old one. Yeah, it resonates differently, but it feels like a Telecaster. I don't know if that means anything to you, but to me, I think
that's good, right?
Yeah, Telecaster's like a wrench. It's a beautifully made tool. There's nothing superfluous about a Telecaster, and it's just a beautifully made tool. And this feels like a beautiful. Well, this doesn't feel like a tool. It's more like a sculpture, but it's got that same feel. If I was talking about it like wine, it would be a mouthfeel. There's something about it above and beyond all the other things. Just the way it feels in your hand and under your arm is really significant.
Let's hear it, Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit of Whoville.
Yeah.
It's a very articulate, and I feel like both guitars are slightly out of tune. So my apologies. It is purely to do with me, nothing to do with the guitars. But this guitar is, it's more. I can't put my fingers on it. There's something Martin-y about it, and I have recently had the pleasure. I was at Carter Vintage Guitars down in Nashville, and I got to play 2 guitars that are way out of my price range, and they're like a 1940s and I think a much older sort of D18 style, beautiful Martins, and they're both very, very, very old. And this has these characteristics for me. It has this sort of buttery, mid-rangey thing, and what I'm excited about is when the bottom end comes in a bit more, and I suspect even that it'll get a little bit more sparkly too. I don't know, but the old one, and we were talking about the thickness of the top. You were talking about that when you were showing the candling.
Yeah.
You remember this guitar? The old one had a weird finish on it that was very, it was very sticky, and so that sort of Ontario,
sticky bad.
Yeah, Ontario August humidity, this would get. And also, you know, these poor things, like they go to festivals and they go in their cases, and sometimes the instrument lockup, sometimes it's, you know, they'll be like, you'll come by 2 hours later and you pick your guitar up and the case is physically hot to the touch.
Right.
Wow.
And you think,
Yeah.
oh God, and it's been left in the sun by some volunteer. So I was finding that I would take the guitar out of the case, and the sort of velvety flocking stuff that they put inside the case was sticking to the top.
Talk about a segue. Hot to the touch.
Oh,
nice.
Nice one. You didn't. That wasn't even planned. Thank you.
Well, I'll finish the thought through, which was I brought it to you and you refinished it, and in doing so, you had to sand the old one. You had to sand the finish off, and the sound of it grew immensely after that.
Well, that makes
because
sense.
I guess you made it slightly thinner, but really the old guitar came alive even more after that, which is really neat.
The lacquer, the type of lacquer that would be on it would be really crucial. And there was a few years where my lacquer's it's really hard to find the right lacquer for guitars. It's really hard to work with. And it has to be flexible enough that it doesn't crack. It's a constant issue for guitar makers to find just the right lacquer or the right finish. Lots of people use stuff other than, yeah, you're enjoying that.
I'm loving the reflection.
But so what happened when I made that guitar, I was I was experimenting with different lacquers, and you got one that was a bit softer, which would have been why it was sticky. And I was probably quite anxious to refinish it.
Yeah.
And that alone, even though I probably took a bit of wood off while I was refinishing it, that alone, having a new lacquer that was harder, would probably have changed the sound in itself.
Well, it's amazing how it has changed over the years, on all the things that have happened to it, all the pickups that I've put in it, the Air Canada, and it's not fair to blame them all the time, because other airlines lose guitars and break them too. But
yes.
It has been through the wars, that guitar. It's had things happen to it that are, at the time, seemed catastrophic. And then the beautiful thing is how these instruments, they come back and they come back, and you get it repaired. And I've seen guitars that were virtually destroyed be repaired to the point where they're still, playable for years and years and years. So they are amazing things. They are amazing things.
Yeah.
Linda, you got our attention with that little Steam display there.
Thank you.
What's that about?
I'm trying to make this as like circus-like as possible. Yeah. A lot of guitar making is actually standing in the same place, sanding a piece of wood. So it can be a little bit boring, but it's actually, I don't never find it boring, but
no, clearly not.
So what I've got here is a bending iron. So when I first started out, what it is it's just a copper pipe with a source of heat, and
we can see the element glowing in the middle there.
Yeah, and so don't try this at home, kids. But like a propane torch and a hot pipe will give you the same effect. And this, the one I've got here on the table, is actually my original bending iron that I made myself. And there are actually commercially available ones available like this, which you can actually buy. There are actually guitar making supply houses. And this is one that you can buy, and it's got a thermostat, and so you can control it. But I'm kind of fond of my own kind of Frankenstein model here that I made myself, because I made it myself. It's also really, it heats up a lot. So I wanted to show
how hot does it get, Linda? What are the temperatures we're talking about?
300.
Okay, hot.
I like doing that. I'm just I don't. So sorry.
It's good.
So yeah. So this is a piece of. There's all sorts of types of wood you can use for sides, and I've got a few little samples here. What a guitar side starts out like is it's two pieces of wood like this. This is actually Indian rosewood, and this will be somebody's guitar soon. But what you do is you thickness it down, and there's different types of wood. I just have a few samples here. This is curly maple, which I use for my arch tops. This is Brazilian, which, by the way, smells amazing when you are bending it. This is koa, curly koa from Hawaii. This is mahogany. And this is a blister or burled maple, which is fun to bend.
Yeah.
And then this is a ziricote, which is a little bit difficult to bend, but every wood has its own method of bending. But what I'm going to show you is just the basic principle, because people always ask
Linda,
me,
how thick are we talking? Is that a 1/16 of an inch, or how thick is it?
oh man, I'm going to go metric, and I'm sorry for all my
That's
non-metric friends here.
Yeah.
Usually when I'm bending the wood, it's about 2.5 millimeters.
Wow, very, very, very thin.
Yeah, and for the purpose of just doing this on camera, this one's probably about 1.5 millimeters, just so I can bend it, you know, without you guys watching me struggle.
Right.
So I have to be really careful because the element is really hot. But
yeah, it'll cook right through it, right?
It will. And what happens when? Oops, I just touched it. What happens is when you're I'm putting a little bit of water on it. But what happens when you're bending Indian rosewood in particular? You don't need water. It's better if you do, but maple, you need water because there's no resin. But this kind of wood has a resin in it.
Right.
And I'll show you what happens. So when I bend it, you rock it slowly. And then the resin's inside. Boy, I've never done this with headphones on like this, but you can see it's bending. It's yielding quite well here.
Yeah.
And then you can maybe see a little bit of smoke coming off of it. Okay, can you see the smoke?
Yep, yes we can.
Okay, so now I bent it that much.
And
now
will
if I
that
let
stay
go,
now? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it'll stay like that now.
Amazing.
Yeah,
And
so
so
you
the
can also
fibers
see,
are actually have the fibers actually contracted because of the heat? Is that what's happened, or
well, think of it as inside of it, all the tubes of like of
Right.
I'm not sure the proper term, but there's resin in here.
Sure.
So what I'm doing is I'm heating up the resin and melting it.
Right.
So it's
okay.
becoming a liquid, and that it's actually also burning, which
Yeah.
is the burn mark you see there.
Right.
And so once I take it off the iron, that resin solidifies again and holds it in place.
Right.
So
Amazing.
I can just bend it very easily the other way. And I gave this demonstration at my mother's seniors residence. And I picked somebody out of the audience. I picked my mother's best friend, who was 98 years old. And I'm standing with her and I'm thinking, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. She's 98 years old, and I'm putting her in front of this stupid hot pipe. And so I held both of her hands and we bent wood, and the crowd went, ooh. It was very sweet. Anyway, so she ended up with a souvenir. And she did not burn herself, and she's very proud of herself.
So that bend now, is that you don't get a second chance to alter the bend, or can you? If you heated it up, could you?
Yeah, I could rebend it. You want me to flatten it?
No, just wondering that if you're making something and it doesn't go the right way the first time, or the way you want it, then you can actually work on it until you get it the way you want.
Yes, yeah, I've just flattened that a bit.
Yeah.
The only problem with the way I'm doing it now is I'm getting resin marks on it, which is not what you want on a guitar. So I'm showing for this demonstration, but in actual fact, what I would do is I would actually put a wet cloth between this and the pipe, and the
Right.
steam from the wet cloth would go into the rosewood and it would steam it. So it would get the heat and it would melt the resin,
Right.
but without putting a burn mark on the guitar, so that you wouldn't see where I'd bent it like this.
Yeah.
And then that's another way. There's sort of like, that's kind of like the basic principle of what you're doing with when you're bending wood. But usually 99% of the time you're bending wood with heat.
Right.
And then a certain degree of moisture, depending on the wood.
Fantastic. And my first thought is, hockey sticks and lacrosse sticks. I guess they must use a similar system.
Or canoes.
Canoes, of course, right?
Yeah.
Cedar canoes. Yeah.
And cedar is way harder to bend because there's no resin in it. Huh. And this at least has resin. But I could also show you a piece of wood, try to bend it and break it. But
sure.
You want me to?
Well, you offered. I mean,
okay.
For all of us at home that are thinking it's easy.
Okay, I'm not sure I could do that on command, but no, I'm not going to do it because
okay, good.
Everything will go flying. I should have. I was actually at one of the demos. At the demo, I was going to have Stephen bend a piece of wood, and I was going to actually make it break.
Without telling him, of course.
Yeah, sorry, Stephen. I was setting you up.
So what about the beautiful inlay of Stephen's initials that are on the new Cowpoke? Is that something that you can tell us? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, let me just take this apart because it's actually like super hot and dangerous. So,
okay, yeah, we'll do that.
Talk amongst yourselves while I clear this. And if you're screaming, just to disregard it.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
So Stephen, are you touring with the new one now? Oh, no Stephen sound yet. We can see him, but we can't hear him.
Sorry, my fault.
No problem.
Pilot error. So yes, I'm. Well, am I touring? Period.
No one is touring. But when you were touring,
I was bringing it with me, and my feeling was that I have this thing. I like traveling with one guitar when I'm on my own, but I suspect that for the next while, when we do start touring again, I will be bringing two of them with me. And Colin actually suggested that for the next leg of Blackie touring, which, if it happens, we're scheduled to do an extensive cross-Canada tour in October, November. And since we'll be doing the whole thing, etc., I think I'm going to bring them both. Right. And it'll give this a chance to get sort of broken in a Rodeo King setting, which is a lot of chain. But check out this inlay up close.
Get it nice and close. There we go.
You know what? I'm just gonna take the camera off. So pardon me of moving around. Okay. Now.
There you go. Yeah, that's it. Is it mother of pearl? What is it?
Made out of mother of pearl.
Wow.
And Linda she's holding up so it's made out of a shell. So Linda, tell us about it.
So is that abalone? What kind of shell is that?
Mother pearl is white. So there's no color in it whatsoever. Well, there's a bit of color, but it's white. And then abalone. Actually, I've got a little chart here. So I don't know if you can see this. So yeah. This is abalone. Mother of pearl. This is a paua, which is from New Zealand. Then just some scraps. And so what I do is it comes out of this shell. It starts this way, and then it's cut into slabs, like about that size. Okay, and then what you cut it with, and then I cut it into shapes with this little saw. Now I don't know if you can see the blade, but it's really tiny.
It's almost a wire, right? That blade, really.
Yeah, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like its own little musical instrument.
Yeah.
And then, or sometimes I use it in this case, this is actually a piece of silver that I've cut. And in fact, I can show you the inlay that went into is this one. There, I don't know if you can see that.
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful.
I call that the saboteur. The little man is detuning your guitar. And what I did was I actually cut the cogs with this little piece of silver here.
Wow.
So somebody will give me a design for a guitar. So in this case,
look at that.
That was actually Gary Larson drew that. I made a guitar for Gary Larson, the cartoonist.
Yeah, the Far Side.
And yeah, I talked him into doing one of his cartoons on the inlay on the peg head.
Brilliant.
He was slightly reluctant, but I really talked him into it. And so, and this is the end result. We called it Frog in Distress. and then this is actually, I'm trying to hold it up so you can see it.
Yeah.
And I made it out of a black pearl, which is actually my favorite, because the idea was that the frog would disappear at a certain angle. I mean, this is just a photograph, but the idea was it would just completely disappear when you turned the peg head. So it would just disappear, which is not working on a photograph, and I've done inlays like this. Wow. That's a cat. And I've also been doing paintings.
Wow, I love that.
That's actually the floating man is actually cut into the wood, the maple, and I painted. So there's it's actually a step down. The man is a little step down.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah, just sort of some experimental stuff. And
so, Linda, this is all part of the same. I mean, I'm thinking back to when you said you used to make 15 or 20 a year. Now you're making 6 a year. Is that why? Because each of them is such a complex work of art.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I'm getting asked for sort of art pieces almost. Right. So my customer base goes from somebody like Steven, who is playing the guitar like mad and scratching it and beating it up and gnawing on it and making them together. Yeah. but making beautiful music and it's a tool and to me, that's like the ultimate compliment is that the guitar kind of disappears and doesn't stand between you and your musical idea. Yeah. And then there's people who, a lot of what the guitar is about is them looking at the guitar, or inlays sometimes represent something very special to them. So I'm trying to capture something for them, because I'm very aware these are iconic objects that are the vehicle for music, but they're also heirlooms and loved.
This is where my thought goes, is that, if we talk about violins and cellos, they last centuries. Like Lynn Harrell, the great cellist, died last week, 76 years old. The cello he played was Jacqueline Dupre's, and before that it was Dupont, the guy who was the cellist for Napoleon, and it still has the scratches on it from when Napoleon grabbed it and held it with his boots that still had his spurs on. So that's from the 1810. Wow. So these things, Linda Manzer, they're going to be around. People are going to make music on them for long after any of us is still here. It's a pretty.
Can I digress a little bit from? I mean, the inlay stuff to me is fascinating, but you brought up something that I've always wondered. Do you know, historically, do guitars last as long as, say, cellos and violins? Because there seem to be this history of old violins and cellos that are still functioning instruments, whereas guitars seem to, after you don't see many guitars that are beyond, like, say, built in the 1930s that are out working. They all seem to be in glass cases. So do you have any read on that, Linda?
Well, I mean, the way they're built and designed now is really different from when they were, 100 years ago. So I would say that probably they're not going to last as long as a cello or a violin. I'm not sure why, but historically that hasn't been shown. Although there are lots of guitars that are that old that are in reasonably good shape. But you're right, because they are rarefied. They're put in museums in glass cases. But I would say probably the lifetime of a guitar is a lot shorter than a violin or a cello. Yeah. Maybe because of the way it's designed, because I would guess because of the bridge, the way it pulls. Yeah. It's putting 200 pounds of pressure trying to twist. Whereas on a violin, it's pushing down on an arch shape, and so it's actually lends itself for longevity, I think, a little better. I'm just making this up as I go along.
No, it's interesting though, hey, that they are, they're like an old guitar. I mean, this is 31 years old, my old one, and it feels like an old guitar. I mean, it's not a 1930s guitar or a 1940s Martin like the ones I played at Carter, but those things felt beautiful, but very delicate. You know, like I wouldn't be bringing that on the road with me. Whereas I'm still very much bringing this on the road. It still feels robust that way.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just see it.
We have we have a couple of questions.
I was just going to get to that. Yeah.
And we want to hear another song. So first of all, Linda asked. Suzanne Hickman asked Linda, "What's your favorite guitar?" I assume she means of the ones you made.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it's just between the two of Stevens.
No. Of the ones you've made, can you have a favorite?
Well, it honestly, the one that I'm most in love with is, honestly, this is true, is the one I'm working on right now, whatever one that is.
Of course.
I mean, there's ones that I'm very fond of. There's one I made, a parlor guitar I made in honor of my mother, that I'm very fond of. I realized I couldn't sell it. Obviously, the Picasso guitar that I made for Pat Metheny with 42 strings has been an absolute blast to watch that, you know, take on a life of its own, because that was kind of a big game changer for me career-wise, I guess. So I had a lot of fun with that guitar. I like exploring. I like and exploring can be just like a new inlay design, or it can be a guitar that's got a million strings on it. So I basically, I'm excited about whatever I'm working on, though. So,
and Linda, another question was, do you play the guitar? Leanne Power.
Yes, Leanne, badly. And so, in fact, here I've got a guitar right here.
Well, can we briefly? Can you want to play a little bit of the Jerry guitar, and then we'll talk about that briefly?
All right. Okay. I play badly, but I don't know if you can see. Here, I'm going to put this. I'm going to put it on the table. Okay. So, can you hear that?
Yeah, it sounds like the start of a hard day's night.
Would you like to swing on a star?
Yeah, she does. She does play guitar.
I got him
10 decades building guitar.
I remembered you said that. You talked about that in your last podcast. That was the first song you sang, Stephen.
Yeah. I was in the Vancouverites when we were crossing the Atlantic on the Empress of Canada. We sang "Swinging on a Star."
Yeah. So I actually learned the first 4 chords of that for today, and that's all I got. So I'm not going to play. It's actually, to be honest, like I'm sort of standing on one leg. That's my excuse. Oh, and I have a dislocated finger. That's my other excuse.
Well, there's nothing like a dislocated finger to.
Yeah. Okay. So, Stephen, will you build a guitar now? That's only fair.
It's funny that you should ask, because I've been saving up my popsicle sticks.
Good one.
No, I'd love to tell the story of that guitar, because in some ways that guitar comes between these two guitars, in that when I got the first guitar, the 30-year-old Manzer, it was a massive investment for me at the time. It was $2,700 way back 31 years ago. Manzer guitars have become a good deal more expensive, and I had no idea how I was going to afford a new one. But when Air Canada did lose it for those 72 hours, I started thinking, okay, I really got to figure out how the hell am I going to afford this. And Linda mentioned that she was starting to make a guitar because she had heard the story of the missing guitar. Anyway, fast forward, go back in time. When I was still living in Ontario, because Air Canada lost it when I was in Halifax. So prior to that, I was living in Ontario, still living in Guelph. And I was playing shows in around the Ottawa Valley. And this guy named Jerry Hayes would show up. And he would bring his guitar to my gigs. And I started noticing, you play gigs, you start to recognize faces in the crowd. And so we finally got to talking, and he said, well, I own a Manzer guitar. And so the next gig he came to, he brought it, and it was that guitar. And he brought it, and we took pictures of them side by side. And if you'll notice, Linda, hold that guitar up again for a sec. You'll notice the cutaway on that guitar. The Jerry is a sharp, whereas this one that you made for me 30 years ago is So that's a Florentine cutaway, and this is a Venetian cutaway. Is that right, or the other way around?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that guitar is a 79, and this guitar is an 89.
Right.
And so, anyway, we took pictures of them together, and we talked about it, and we were like Manzer owners do. It's sort of like a little club. And if you like you run into another Manzer owner, you talk about, hey, I got a Manzer. Well, so do I. And
I never do that.
Anyway, he came to a gig. I was playing somewhere outside Ottawa. This was after several years of being sort of acquaintances, and he brought the guitar and came backstage, and I was looking at us playing it, and he said, I want you to have it. And I went, what?
Wow.
What? And he said, no, really, I've thought about it, and I don't play it very much, and I really want you to have it. So Jerry was, I believe he worked for Agriculture Canada, and he was a weekend picker, and he had a small collection of guitars and a couple of Taylors, and he had that guitar. And he had bought it 10 or 12 years prior. It was, it's a 79, so it was very early, as you would know in your building career. It looks like a Larrivee. Anyway.
Yeah, you know what? It's number 13. It's the
Wow.
13th guitar I made, which
Wow.
I didn't know until I started doing research on it just recently.
Huh.
Okay, well,
Or it's a 12th guitar that I sold. I kept the first one.
he wanted to give it to me, and I said no. I couldn't take it. It was too big of a gift. It just seemed like there's a karma for me about guitars and being given. And I've been given a couple over the years. I have a beautiful old 1970s SG that a friend of mine in the States gave me. But there's this thing when people give you a guitar, it's a very big gift, and at least for me,
and a responsibility, right? It comes with a
responsibility. And I knew that this was a guitar that he cherished, but probably didn't play very much. And I knew that if I got my paws on it, it would get covered in mustard, and it would get pickups put in it and then taken out, and other pickups put in and then taken out, and then it would get dropped, and it would get shat upon, spat upon, stomped, torn, and ripped and lost by Air Canada. And I said, Jerry, I don't think you understand what happens to these things when they get into the likes of my hands. So I said, no, I don't want it. Thank you. I mean, I do want it. I cursed myself all the way home. You idiot. You idiot. The guy's giving you a 79 Manzer and you said no. So, but I went home, and Diane, Jerry's partner, told me later that he never played it again, that it sat on a stand. And he referred to it as Stephen's guitar. And it just sat there. He passed away 3 or 4 years later, and I found out about this from Diane, who I've lost touch with. So if for some reason, Diane, if you're listening to this or you're around, please drop me a line through website, because I'd love to be back in touch with you. But Jerry passed away. Diane got in touch with me. She said, when are you coming to get your guitar? It's sitting here. There's a letter of ownership for you. And
amazing.
So I got that guitar and I started playing it, and it felt like there was something wrong. And I could not figure out what was wrong with it, but it didn't feel like the sound felt like it was choked. And I remember thinking, what am I going to do? I mean, the karma around being given a guitar. If somebody gives you a guitar and you leave it in a case, to me, that's bad karma. I don't have many guitars that don't get played in my life. They either have very great sentimental memories for me, and I hold on to them for that reason, or else they're players. That's it. And so I was a bit befuddled, and I took it to Tony Duggan Smith, who works with you, and I said, what's going on with this guitar? And he looked at it for about a minute, and he said, it needs a neck reset. The neck should have been reset 15 years ago, and instead they've planed the bridge down. And so he said, it needs about $2,000 worth of work. And I thought, oh my God, what if I put that work into it and then I don't like it? Then there's the bad karma and the financial responsibility. And that's when you stepped in and said, I tell you what, I will bring this guitar back to pristine, and you decide whether you want it or not. And if you don't want it, I will move it on, and I will build you a new guitar. And so that guitar begat this guitar, because then you started making this guitar, which is the same model as my old guitar, which is what I wanted. I wanted a guitar that if anything happened to my old guitar, it would replace it. So that guitar is more of a Larrivee style or more. It's more of a fingerstyle guitar to me, or it's less of a widescreen guitar, which is what my Cowpoke is, which is what I love about it, is that I can do what I like to do. It feels familiar to me. Whereas that guitar didn't feel as familiar to me. It felt like it was a different food group, if you will, as Colin Linden talks about food groups. And I really relate to that. So anyway, that guitar is the one that comes between these two. And I'm so glad to see it again. And I still wonder about, the one that got away. But
yeah, well, it's
transformed. It's completely transformed. It's a brand new 40-year-old Manzer, 41-year-old. It's a brand new
new neck. Well, it doesn't have a new neck, but the neck has been refurbished. So it's got a new fingerboard. It's got a new truss rod that Tony did all this work. New peg head. It had an inlay or something in it, didn't it?
Yes, it is.
Was it a unicorn?
I didn't bring that up. It was a very well not well endowed, but a very well fed unicorn on the head. And I remember thinking, oh, that's another issue.
Yeah, I know.
So I remember asking you if you could put a cowboy on the unicorn, or maybe somebody like it or something, because I just couldn't see how I was going to get up with Blackie and the Rodeo Kings. And the heckling that would come from a certain man named Tom Wilson that I was playing a guitar with a unicorn on the headstock.
Yeah. Now remember, kids, when you're putting guitar inlays in your guitars, they're like tattoos. You're stuck with them. So yeah. So this is the vibe's different now, and
it's very different.
It's set up. It's got really great action, and it's ready for its next home.
Wow, guys, we're gonna run out of time in just a couple of minutes. So let's have one more. So let's say goodbye first, and Stephen, you can sing us out the way you played it.
Yeah, I will sure do that. Listen, this is something that we're hoping to do again live, which would be way more fun. But stay tuned. Thanks for listening to us, folks. And Linda, thank you so much. Honestly, last time we did this, I felt like I got more emotional because, first of all, the guitar was so new, but also it was different seeing you in person. I love seeing your shop, and I love the demonstration.
Fun to see you there. It's great.
What I haven't said is thank you, because this thing, 30 years, most of the song, well, all the songs I've written have been on this guitar. All of my whole life, I've been playing this longer than my marriages. So,
and I'm so grateful. Thank you for.
It's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing, and to get a new chapter is very exciting. Tom, thank you so much for agreeing to host this and beam in and sort of steer the conversation. And to all of you who've been listening in, thanks so much. This will be archived on my website. And stay tuned. There is more stuff coming down the live stream pipe for me, but I will leave you with this song.
Let me just say, I just want to say thank you as well, because Stephen, it's such a great honor it's a dream for somebody like me to put my guitars in the hands of somebody who's going to bring them to life. And that just means the world to me. It's in a good way.
Mustard and everything.
Mustard and everything. And Tom, thanks for being the referee. You're
my pleasure.
And thanks for to everybody out there, stay safe. And
stay sane.
And we'll all get through this together.
Yeah.
No shit. I wrote this song on this guitar, sort of for this guitar, and it's called This Guitar. So there you go. No more explanation is necessary. We were born and raised like a song, like this guitar, born to seize the day, like the songs we sang on this guitar. Every memory, everyone we try to be, every song that sends us chasing down the highway, every town we play, every truth we try to say, that every tale has a beginning and an ending. So when you get your wings like a song, like this guitar. You must rise up singing like the songs we sang on this guitar. Looking back to find all the lies you left behind. Are you caught now between yesterday and tomorrow? 'Cause everyone pretends that they want to know the ending, and then they run away with their pride and their sorrow. Oh, so when you get your wings like a song, like this guitar, you must rise up singing like the songs we sang on this guitar. You must rise up singing like the songs we sang on this guitar. This guitar. This guitar. Thanks so much. See you soon.